CSX has been running an experiment in efficiency over the summer of 2015. Super long trains with distributed power. Locomotives not only pulling, but also pushing from the end or a midpoint. That's what I want to catch today. So it's up early, north on I-75 and west on US 90 to parallel the CSX Tallahassee subdivision. Daybreak at Ellaville, way down upon the Swanee River. Radio chatter from the CSX JB dispatcher told me eastbound Q60603 was nearing Tallahassee. 606 is one of the trains that DPU has been used on. Not being super familiar with this line, I jumped off at Greenville. A classic Seaboard Airline siding, South Greenville is protected by a color light signal with a doll arm. The arm indicates that a track intervenes between the track the signal governs and the signal itself. In this case, the intervening track is a storage track that tails out of the siding towards us. The dwarf signal facing us guards a D-rail, protecting the siding from the tail track. Seaboard built these tail storage tracks all along this line. It was an easy way to provide a house track for small-town freight deliveries. At 8:30, I get a call from Tallahassee rail fan Riley Kinney that 606 was through the capital city. 8:55 a.m., more good news. The approach lit signal is lit. And then at 09:02, tally-ho.
CSXQ 60603 with engine CSXG 967 clear north end of Greenville, northbound.
What you're about to see is a pretty typical event in rural small towns, but it doesn't make it any easier to watch. Q60603, New Orleans, Louisiana to Waycross, Georgia. The first DPU train I've ever seen on CSX. This oversized beast is hauling empties, loads, hoppers, chemical tanks, company diesel, liquefied petroleum gas, finished lumber, cement, Mexican-made automobiles, and dozens of miscellaneous boxcars. Midpoint in the train is the distributive power locomotive, a lone GE under radio control from the head engine. CSX is trying this DPU concept with these manifests and some coal trains on this line. In theory, it cuts down on crew starts and just gets product over the road faster. A complete rehab of the line's track structure earlier this year made DPU possible. At 11,429 feet, Q60603 will only fit in 2 passing points along the Tallahassee sub, Tallahassee and Baldwin. So with pockets of slow speeds, they've got to keep this train moving. It's 20 miles per hour across the diamond here at Greenville.
CSX, equipment, defect, detector, milepost 760, no defects, length of train 11429, speed 27, total axle 766, end of transmission.
I got word that another Q606 was coming to Tallahassee, so I beat it west on I-10. Into the capital city, I snaked my way to the old Seaboard Main. On Tharp Street, past my old high school, Amos P. Godby. On to Pensacola Street, past my favorite old barbecue spot, Jim and Milt's Barbecue. I don't believe it. On to Lipona Road, past the house where I lived as a child, just 1 block from the SAL main line. The crossing where Dad used to take me to watch the Gulf Wind and Mail and Express pass in the evenings in the early 1960s. Still with pole line code wires. Don't know if they're in service or not, but those wires still look good. The dark signal down there is the distant to Tallahassee Holdout. While waiting on the Q606 to arrive, I moved a little north toward downtown. This is the Tallahassee Holdout. It's like an outdoor railroad museum still in revenue service. Signals here just as they were installed probably in the 1950s. Rarely do you see signal masts mounted on relay boxes anymore. A holdout signal is an absolute signal that has no interlocked turnouts. It does just what it says, holds trains out of a station, a yard, someplace where congestion may be a problem and a dispatcher may have need to stop a train on the main line to let something else clear. The day's second Q606 appeared on the radio, and I went to intercept. Driving west next to the yard seemed best, but of course, when you're in a hurry, I got down Roberts Avenue and could see the rail yard through the trees and knew 606 was only yards from me. So I bailed out, on foot through the North Florida underbrush and down to the track. And not a minute too soon. Down there somewhere. I drove to the north end of the yard to get a second look, but again, too much kudzu.
5649 plate safety line to up and riding sharp.
Out to Lake Bradford Road, one of 4 rail overpasses in Tallahassee on this same line. And again, the only parking lot was to the north on the shady side, and way too much kudzu to get to the tracks. So, more sightseeing. About a quarter mile north of that holdout signal from earlier is the Tallahassee Passenger Station. The 1858 freight depot was renovated in 1993 to serve passengers on and off the Sunset Limited. That was a heck of a train. All superliner equipment and the nicest crews you'd ever want to meet. But in 2005, Hurricane Katrina wiped out the line in Mississippi and around New Orleans. And even though CSX repaired the line in 6 months, Amtrak suspended the Sunset east of New Orleans. And that was that. For 10 years, there's been no passenger service across the Florida Panhandle. The old Seaboard Passenger Station across the street houses offices for CSX engineering forces in this territory. The Tallahassee Main Line continues eastward around the curve and skirts downtown on its south side, then swings northward, where 2 more overpasses stand side by side. The Lafayette Street Viaduct, built by SAL in 1929, and 100 feet next door, the Appalachie Parkway overpass, built sometime in the late 50s. The Appalachie Parkway is US 27 coming into Tallahassee from Perry and the Big Bend of Florida. It runs right to the Capitol steps and makes an impressive entrance to the city. The JB dispatcher was apparently holding the 606 in the yard because an X118 I'd heard about all morning suddenly appeared on the radio. And I was in a good place for him.
X11804, the CSX 701. Clear distance to Tallahassee, southbound.
X118 was evidently makeup traffic for Q179, the regular Jacks to New Orleans stack train. It was a nice catch here on the Appalachie Parkway. Since my days as a little kid, it's always been a thrill seeing trains cross these bridges. I knew the Q606 would be coming out behind X118, so I opted to beat it eastward to intercept. First place I could think of was Lloyd. Once a stop on the SAL Main, now a post office, Lloyd was restored a few years ago by the Gulf Wind chapter of the National Railway Historical Society. It's said to be the oldest train depot in Florida. I waited for about half an hour and heard nothing on the radio from 606, and since there are no signals here, I pushed on toward Jacksonville.
CSX, equipment, defect, detector, milepost 760.
Another artifact of the old days are all the defect detectors on the Tallahassee line, still with a real voice on them instead of that synthesized voice they have on the new ones. He's the guy some of us call the old man, and I love hearing him.
CSX, equipment, defect, detector, milepost 760. no defects. Length of train 7490. Speed 49. Total axle 470. End of transmission.
Moving eastward on US 90 through the antebellum town of Monticello, where the old Atlantic coastline Perry Cutoff crossed on its way north to DuPont, Georgia. You can feel the pavement rise as you cross the old roadbed of the Perry Cutoff. It began to rain as I came into Madison, but Q606 had caught up with me, so I took a shot on catching him at South End Madison siding, which required an excursion down a narrow canopy road and a little aggressive dirt road driving. Whew, made it, but the camera was laying on my front seat with cold AC blowing on it. And when it hit the muggy air that Florida thunderstorm had left behind, well, So I turned off the AC and put the spurs to the expedition, back down that dirt road, but too late. Now the real weather hit, wipers on speed 2, but track trouble helped me catch back up to the 606. So more dirt road driving to the north end of Lee siding.
For your movement, make sure it's not for your movement, main to main. Restore the switch to power once your lead trucks get on it.
The conductor had to walk to the switch, take it off power, manually throw it, then when the engine trucks got onto the switch, put it back in power and depart. But before all this happened, it began to rain again, hard. So I bolted up the road on toward Live Oak. Live Oak is home to major poultry farms. Pilgrim's Pride operates their own ginormous feed mill here. That is a lot of chicken feed. It all arrives in covered hoppers, so Pilgrim's has their own switcher to move the cars around. Most interesting to me at Live Oak is this. Now that the ones at Auburndale and Baldwin are gone, I believe these are the last US&S Y-pattern signals left on the seaboard lines in Florida. At South End Live Oak, these old SAL-era lights are still earning their keep for CSX. For some reason, the north end signals are normal vertical pattern lights. The yellow over red is signaling approach to Q606 coming up from the south. Even though he's keeping the main, 606 gets the approach because the train he's meeting, Q609, either hasn't gotten to the siding or hasn't cleared the turnout yet. The 7,200-foot train was pulled by a UP AC-44 CWCTE, a UP SD-70M, a CSX ES-44DC, and a CSX MP-15 AC dead in tow.
FX. Equipment. Defect. Detector. Mile post 719. No defect. 379. E46. Total axle 470. End of transmission.
Then, up the hill came Q609, Waycross to New Orleans, mixed freight with much the same kind of traffic as the 606. By an AC-44CW, an ES-44DC, and a GP-40-2 also dead in tow. When Q609's markers cleared the old SAL signal and its doll arm, it was time for me to make tracks for Tampa. I hope you've enjoyed this little chase across the top of Florida on this historic old line. At South End Live Oak, Florida, This is Danny Harmon. Out.